So, sooner or later, you're going to need to change the head on your snare drum. It's really simple. There's a lot on the internet that will confuse you and make it sound like it's a really complicated thing, but it's actually really, really simple. You only really need two tools, a cloth and a drum key. Of course, you'll also need your replacement heads and your snare drum. Now, this snare drum, so we've managed to break the bottom head on this one. Bottom heads don't usually break, but just unlucky, I guess. It being a snare drum, the first thing we need to do is we need to release this snare. The actual snare wire is going across the bottom. So turn off your throw, your snare throw. Done that. And what I tend to do is I tend to only undo one side. On this side we have a couple of drum bolts there, one there, and another on that. So I'm just going to loosen them with my drum key, undo this plate here. I'll have to find that one again in a minute. This particular snare is held on by cord, sometimes they're tape. So once you've released one side of the snare wires, just pop them on the top of the head like that, and then start loosening off the rest of these tension rods. Okay, once you've got all the tension rods nice and loose, you should be able to lift off the bottom hoop like that. Now, remember I said about the snare wires? You should just slide through there like that. Beautiful! And then put this down, being careful not to lose those tension rods. Once you've removed that, pop that snare over there, and off comes the broken head. This is where your cloth comes in. Take the opportunity to give your snare a nice clean, because it doesn't get cleaned very often like that. It allows you to get in there. Make sure this bearing edge is in nice, good condition. You don't want any chips or holes or big lumps taken out of it. While you're in the drum, just check the internal nuts and bolts as well. Just make sure they're all nice and tight still. Give them a tighten if they need it. And then just do the reverse. We're going to put the new head on. We're going to put the hoop back on. And then we're going to tighten it up and then tune it. So we'll get our head. Make sure this is the right one. This looks like it's my snare side. Or resonant head. Beautiful. Now, some people, like me, are fussy about where the logo goes. In reality, doesn't really matter. Make sure that sits on there nice and straight. Then you get your hoop that you took off after you've given it a bit of a clean. Remember, the bottom hoop has got these big holes in the side, see? That's for your snare wires to go through. So what we're going to do is we're going to carefully take that snare and we're going to post it through one of those slots, like that, and then just sit the hoop down, put those snare cords through now just to save me a job later. Line the tension rods up with the lugs, the tension lugs, sit them in the top like that so it's all nice and we know it's all lined up and everything's in its right place. Now, this is a new snare head, so you have to get it to sit on the bearing edge of the drum. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to give these all finger tight. Right, so once we've got all of these little tuning lugs finger tight, what we're going to do, we're going to push down on that head, and then we're going to tighten them right up. Now, I tend to do them a couple of turns, and I go opposites, couple of turns, opposite. You feel the pressure, and you put 2 turns on once you felt the pressure. 1, 2, opposite. Feel the pressure. 1, 2, move along 1, and pressure 1, 2, opposite, feel the pressure 1, 2, move along 1, feel the pressure 1, 2. Now you hear that cracking sound. That cracking sound is the head starting to sit tightly onto the drum's bearing edge. Opposite, find the pressure 1, 2. It can be a bit of a scary sound, but you're unlikely to break the head at this point. Around 1, that's it. It's nice and tight. That's nice and tight. Oh, that one's a bit loose, so we're going to do 1. Ooh, 1.5 on that one. Opposite. Now, just going to move my snare out of the way actually. I'm going to put that over there, just so it's out of the way. Tuning your snare drum. You have to tune the bottom head as well as the top head. Now, the bottom head tends to be a bit tighter. There's no right or wrong way of doing it. It's a personal preference. Experiment with different tightnesses. The only real rule is each of the tuning lugs needs to be at the same tightness. And you test that by just hitting next to each lug. And you want the same kind of sound. It's roughly right. Let me take those fingerprints off. Fingerprints on my nice new drum head. We can't be having that, can we? That's going to be rough. Don't forget, once you've got your drum back on the kit, you can fine tune it. Now we're going to put these snares back on. A lot of people make a mistake now. Remember, we've got this really loose over here, so don't pull it too tight because you've got the snare tensioner turned off. What we want it, when the snare tensioner is turned back on again, it pulls the snares up onto the head. So we're going to put these fellas back in. The way I tend to like to do it is I'll just get those just to grip in there. That saves me having to hold it. And then I get the cable and I go around the lug. So it goes in the middle and then around the lug. And then make it about halfway across the drum. And I tighten them up. Remember what we said, we don't want them too tight. That snare tensioner is going to lift them up onto the head and tighten them. So we don't be putting too much pressure on it. And don't drop your drum key. Okay, so I'm just going to tighten that up just to stop it coming off. I may have done that a little tight, but that's okay. Let me turn it over. Yeah. So I'm going to loosen this off a little bit. There we go. And then the snare tensioner brings the snare back onto the head and lifts it away from the head when I turn it off. So that's about right. That's about the right tension. But again, you can fiddle about with it once it's back on the drum kit and you can get to play it and you know how it sounds. Let's do the top head or the batter head. So, same procedure. We loosen all the lugs. So, I'll come back once I've done all of this. So you can see we've loosened all of those. We should lift the hoop away. Pop that down there. Try not to lose it. Take the old head off. Put that on one side. Again, check the bearing edge. Make sure it's all nice and clean and free from any dinks or holes or chips or anything like that. Get your new batter head. I'll make a separate video about choosing which heads because you can see there are loads. There's a load you can choose. As all things music and drumming, it's personal preference. I like these. Spot. Bit of a coating on the outside as well. I like the coating because sometimes I play with brushes and the brushes makes a nice sound. Again, some people are very, very fussy about where the badge goes. In reality, it doesn't actually matter. Sit that on there like that. Beautiful. Get your hoop. Give it a bit of a clean. And then line up the lugs with the tension rods. Like that. Sit them in. The batter head or top head is tuned slightly differently. Just as we did before, finger tight on all the lugs. Right, that's them all finger tight, I think. And again, like we did before, push it down onto the head. And then feel the pressure. 1, 2. Opposite. Feel the pressure. 1, 2. Feel the pressure. 1, 2. Opposite. Feel the pressure. 1, 2. You should have a really tight head now. So now we just bring it up to how we like to get it tuned. So we get a drumstick and go around the tension rods. We want the same tone on each tension rod. That one's a bit higher. So what we'll do is we'll bring the others up to that one. You keep doing that until you have a nice even tone all the way around. There we are, we've got it on a drum stand. Let's try it without the snares on first. Bit ringy, but it sounds okay. Remember, we haven't properly tuned this yet. You can't properly tune it until you get it on the kit. But I'll be doing another video on how to tune. Not bad for a first rough tune of a new head. I think that's okay. Got a nice crack to it. I reckon that'll do. Now, you've got new heads on this drum. They're going to stretch. And when they stretch, they're going to go out of tune. So make sure you've always got a drum key with you and just do little tweaks until you get it sounding just right, the way you like it. And don't worry about it going out of tune quickly, which it will do because, as I said, new head. That's how you tune, that's how you re-head a snare drum. Told you it was easy. Nothing to it really. Anyway, I hope you found that useful and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers. Bye.